Welcome to the Nostalgia Archive. It's been a long day. It's time to relax. If you fall asleep, that's the point. This video will keep going for hours. Tonight, we are drifting back to the neon-soaked landscape of the early 1990s. It was an era defined by a very specific kind of Saturday morning ritual. Imagine the feeling of waking up before your parents, the house silent and cool, illuminated only by the flicker of a cathode ray tube television. You are sitting on the carpet, a bowl of sugary cereal in your lap, waiting for the static to clear. The world was transitioning from the soft, hand-drawn lines of classic animation to something sharper, louder, and decidedly more kinetic. It was a time of bright primary colors, oversized synthesizers, and a cultural phenomenon that seemed to arrive from another galaxy to take over playgrounds everywhere. We are revisiting the age of the Power Rangers, not just a television show, but a shared global memory of spandex, sparks, and giant robots. Number 1 begins with the day of the dumpster. When Mighty Morphin Power Rangers first premiered on August 28, 1993, it arrived with a premise that felt both ancient and shockingly modern to the eyes of a child. The first episode, titled Day of the Dumpster, introduced us not just to 5 teenagers with attitude, but to a visual language we had never seen before. There was a grit to the footage, a distinct graininess that separated the American scenes at the juice bar from the high-contrast battles in the quarry. This disconnect created a dreamlike quality, where the sleepy fictional town of Angel Grove felt permanently suspended in a state of monster attacks. Remembering that pilot episode now, you can almost smell the ozone of the teleportation effects and feel the low-budget charm of the command center. It was the spark that ignited a fire, turning a quiet Saturday morning into the beginning of a multi-decade legacy that would permanently alter the landscape of children's television. Number 2 is The Secret of the Zyuranger. For years, many of us watched the show completely unaware of its trans-Pacific origins. We believed that Jason, Kimberly, Zach, Trini, and Billy were the ones inside those suits fighting the putty patrollers. However, the soothing reality is that we were watching a masterful collage. The action sequences were lifted directly from a Japanese Super Sentai series called Kyoryu Sentai Zyuranger. There is something strangely comforting about realizing the disconnect, that the Yellow Ranger in the Japanese footage was actually a male character, which explains why the yellow suit didn't have a skirt like the Pink Rangers. This splicing of footage created a unique, slightly disjointed rhythm to the show that became its signature. The monsters often moved with a theatricality that was distinct from American acting, featuring exaggerated gestures and dramatic poses that transcended the language barrier, communicating purely through the universal language of kinetic motion. Number 3 explores Haim Saban's 8-year odyssey. Before the Power Rangers became a household name, the concept sat on a shelf, gathering dust and rejection. Haim Saban, the media mogul behind the franchise, discovered the Super Sentai shows while on a business trip to Japan in the 1980s. He was mesmerized by the visuals, yet every American network executive he approached dismissed the idea as too violent, too foreign, or simply too strange. For 8 long years, the idea of teenagers with attitude remained a dormant dream. There is a quiet melancholy in imagining those years of silence, where the Power Rangers existed only on a demo tape in a briefcase, rejected time and time again. It wasn't until Margaret Loesch at Fox Kids took a gamble that the silence was broken. It serves as a reminder that the things which define our childhoods often hang by the thinnest of threads, waiting for the right moment to emerge into the light. Number 4 is the arrival of the Green Ranger. If the show had a moment where it transitioned from a simple episodic adventure to a serialized soap opera for children, it was the Green with Evil saga. Tommy Oliver, played by Jason David Frank, entered the scene not as a hero, but as a villain corrupted by Rita Repulsa. This 5-part miniseries felt epic in scale, disrupting the safe, predictable rhythm of the show. For the first time, the Rangers were losing. The command center was breached. Zordon was silenced. The Green Ranger's shield, that gold armor resting over the green spandex, became an icon of power and mystery. Watching these episodes felt heavier, the stakes higher. The grainy footage of the Green Ranger playing his dagger like a flute to summon the Megazord is etched into the collective memory. A haunting melody that signaled the arrival of a complex anti-hero in a world of black and white morality. Number 5 concerns the parental panic. As the show's popularity skyrocketed, a wave of concern washed over the adult world. To the eyes of parents and regulators, the martial arts combat was too intense, the monsters too grotesque. It sparked a cultural conversation about violence in media that filled the newspapers and evening news broadcasts of the mid-90s. In several countries, the show was heavily censored or banned outright. In Scandinavia, the show was pulled from the air completely after a specific playground incident. This external pressure added a layer of forbidden allure to the franchise. Watching Power Rangers felt like a minor act of rebellion, a secret pact between children who understood the fantasy and adults who only saw the punching. The static of the TV screen felt a little more charged, knowing that the world outside the living room disapproved, making the connection to the show feel intimate and protective. Number 6 is the great toy shortage of 1993. If you close your eyes, you might remember the frantic energy of toy stores during the holiday season of that year. Bandai, the toy manufacturer, had vastly underestimated the demand for the action figures. They expected to sell a modest amount. Instead, parents were driving across state lines, chasing rumors of delivery trucks. The shelves where the Power Rangers should have been were often empty, stripped bare by the insatiable appetite of the public. This scarcity turned the plastic figures into artifacts of immense value. Owning a flip-head auto-morphin figure, where the head rotated from a human face to a helmet, was a status symbol on the playground. The tactile memory of those toys, the click of the plastic, the glossy sheen of the stickers, the smell of fresh vinyl, remains a potent anchor to that specific winter, a time of desperate searching and rare, triumphant discovery. Number 7 is the architecture of the command center. The base of operations for the Power Rangers was a masterpiece of retro-futurist design. Perched atop a desolate mountain peak, the exterior looked like a harsh, brutalist structure, but the interior was bathed in soft blue light and confusing technology. The consoles were covered in buttons that seemed to have no labeled function, simply blinking in rhythmic patterns. But the centerpiece was Zordon, a giant, ethereal head floating in a tube of energy. The practical effect of Zordon was achieved by projecting the actor's face onto a cylinder, creating a distorted, wizard-like presence. The hum of the command center, a constant low-frequency drone, provided a sonic blanket for the exposition scenes. It was a safe harbor, a place of wisdom and teleportation lights, where the chaotic battles of the outside world were monitored on a giant viewing globe that offered a grainy window into the danger. Number 8 is the sonic landscape of Ron Wasserman. The background music of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was not the typical orchestral score found in children's programming. It was hard rock, bordering on heavy metal, composed and performed by Ron Wasserman. The driving guitar riffs, the rapid-fire drum machines, and the synthesized solos gave the show a pulse that was significantly faster than a resting heartbeat. The theme song, Go Go Power Rangers, is an anthem that transcends the show itself. But beyond the main theme, the incidental music, the fight theme, the moody tracks that played during Rita's scenes on the moon, created a sonic texture that was aggressive yet melodic. It taught a generation of children to appreciate the energy of a distorted guitar. Listening to it now, stripped of the visuals, it evokes the feeling of adrenaline and the rush of running home from the school bus to catch the opening credits. Number 9 describes the physicality of the suits. The Power Ranger costumes themselves are marvels of simple, effective design. They were made of a spandex blend that caught the light in a specific way, revealing the muscles and often the stunt padding underneath. The helmets, with their sculpted lips and black visors, rendered the heroes emotionless and stoic during battle, allowing the audience to project their own feelings onto the masks. There was a specific sound associated with the suits, the thwack of impact, which was often dubbed over with a heavy, exaggerated sound effect that didn't match reality. We also cannot forget the sparks. In the Power Rangers universe, impact didn't cause bleeding. It caused a shower of sparks to erupt from the chest. This pyrotechnic choice softened the violence, turning combat into a light show, a dazzling display of fireworks that made the battles feel more like a celebration of motion than a fight for survival. Number 10 is the ritual of the Zords. The climax of almost every episode involved the escalation of size. The monster would grow, towering over the miniature cityscapes, and the Rangers would summon their Zords. These massive mechanical beasts, prehistoric animals reimagined as tanks and jets, would emerge from volcanoes, ice caps, and deserts. The sequence of them combining into the Megazord was a minute-long meditation on engineering and cooperation. We watched the T-Rex fold, the Triceratops become a leg, the saber-toothed tiger become the other leg, the pterodactyl forming the chest plate. It was a mechanical ballet, accompanied by the grinding sounds of heavy metal shifting and locking into place. The final result, a lumbering giant of plastic and paint, moved with a slow, heavy grace. It gave us a sense of scale and finality. A comforting assurance that no matter how big the problem grew, the solution could always be built by coming together. Number 11 is the architecture of the Moon Palace. While the Rangers operated from a high-tech bunker, their adversaries plotted from a Gothic nightmare located on the lunar surface. Rita Repulsa's palace was a structure that defied logical construction, a towering spire of twisted metal and ancient stone silhouetted against the black backdrop of space. From the balcony, Rita would gaze down at the earth, which hung like a fragile blue marble in the sky, using her ornate telescope to spy on Angel Grove. The interior was just as chaotic, filled with fog, gears, and the constant, erratic movements of her henchmen. There was a specific texture to this set. It felt dusty, cold, and claustrophobic. The palace wasn't just a villain's lair, it was a prison. It represented a place of exile, creating a stark contrast between the sunny, palm tree-lined streets of the teenagers' lives and the dark, industrial isolation of their enemies. The visuals of the palace, often reused footage from the Japanese source, had a grainy, high-contrast quality that made the moon feel like a place of ancient, forgotten magic. Number 12 is the sound of the putty patrollers. Before the monster of the week grew to giant size, the Rangers had to contend with the foot soldiers known as putties. These beings were molded from clay, and their presence was announced not by a battle cry, but by a bubbling, garbled vocalization that sounded like water boiling in a deep cavern. They moved with a jerky, fluid motion, tumbling and flipping in ways that felt inhuman. Their grey, rock-like skin and featureless faces made them a terrifying concept for a child, an enemy with no identity, no eyes, and no mercy. When a putty was defeated, it didn't just fall down, it vanished. In the earlier seasons, they would simply disappear, but later, hitting the Z symbol on their chest caused them to shatter into pieces. The sound of their defeat was a crumbling noise, like pottery breaking, reinforcing the idea that these weren't living creatures, but disposable constructs of evil, returning to the dust from which they were made. Number 13 enters the sanctuary of the Juice Bar. In the chaotic universe of Angel Grove, there was one neutral ground where the monsters rarely attacked: the Youth Center. This open-air gymnasium and cafe was the social heart of the show. It was a place of eternal sunshine, pastel tank tops, and the rhythmic sound of karate sparring mats. Presiding over this domain was Ernie, the Hawaiian shirt-wearing proprietor who served smoothies with a smile that could disarm a villain. The Juice Bar represented the idealized version of American teenage life in the 90s. It was a space free from parents, yet entirely safe. The smell of fruit punch and floor wax seems to radiate from the memory of those scenes. It was here that the Rangers could just be teenagers, worrying about science projects or dance competitions rather than the fate of the galaxy. It anchored the high fantasy battles in a reality that felt attainable, a comfortable third place that every viewer wished existed in their own neighborhood. Number 14 considers the tragedy of Bulk and Skull. While the Rangers were stoic models of virtue, the show's soul was often found in its bullies, Farkas Bulk Bulkmeyer and Eugene Skull Skullovich. They were the classical jesters of the series, providing slapstick comedy that often involved food fights, falling into cakes, or being humiliated by supernatural forces. Yet, as the seasons progressed, a strange melancholy developed around them. They were constantly on the periphery of greatness, desperately trying to discover the Rangers' identities or become heroes themselves, only to fail time and again. Their theme music, a tuba-heavy, plodding melody, signaled their arrival, painting them as buffoons. But looking back, they were the most human characters on the show. They were the bystanders trying to make sense of a world filled with giant robots and aliens. Their friendship was unshakable, a bond of loyalty that rivaled even the Rangers, proving that even in a world of superheroes, two outcasts could find belonging in each other. Number 15 is the 1995 cinematic upgrade. When Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie, hit theaters, it offered a glimpse of the franchise with a Hollywood budget. Suddenly, the spandex was replaced by heavy armored suits that looked like PVC plating. The command center was larger, the lights were brighter, and the teleportation effects were rendered in sleek CGI rather than analog video overlays. The film moved the action away from the familiar Japanese quarry to a darkened, more atmospheric version of Angel Grove. The villain, Ivan Ooze, brought a different texture to the screen, viscous purple slime. The movie introduced a sense of scale that the TV show couldn't match, particularly with the controversial use of CGI Zords. While the computer graphics of 1995 have aged into a primitive, blocky aesthetic, at the time, seeing the Ninja Zords march through the city without the man-in-suit physics felt like stepping into the future. It was a distinct parallel universe, slightly glossier and heavier than the show we watched at home. Number 16 is the Zeo Crystal transition. There is a specific sadness that comes with the end of an era, and for Power Rangers, that moment was the transition from Mighty Morphin to Power Rangers Zeo. The dinosaur theme, which had defined the childhood of millions, was discarded. The colorful coins were destroyed, replaced by the geometric shapes of the Zeo crystals. The costumes changed, adopting a sharper, more militaristic design with symbols on the visors, stars, squares, and triangles. This shift signaled that the show was not static, it was evolving. The villains changed from the mystical Rita and Zed to the technological machine Empire, replacing magic with cold clockwork and oil. The theme song changed, the Zords became more abstract, and the color palette shifted to include gold. It was the first lesson many children learned about rebranding and the impermanence of things. The comfortable familiarity of the dinosaurs was gone, replaced by a stronger-than-before aesthetic that felt colder, sharper, and distinctly mid-90s. Number 17 is the beep of the Communicator. Before cell phones were in every pocket, the Power Rangers possessed the ultimate piece of wearable technology, the wrist communicator. Created by the Blue Ranger Billy, these chunky watches were the envy of every child. The device made a distinct, 6-note electronic chirping sound, beep, beep, bip, bip, beep, beep, that is instantly recognizable to this day. It was a sound that cut through the noise of the juice bar or the classroom, signaling that duty called. The physicality of raising the wrist to the mouth to speak to Zordon was a gesture of immense importance. It bridged the gap between the secret superhero life and the civilian identity. Unlike the Morphers, which were kept hidden, the Communicators were worn in plain sight, a secret hiding in the open. The desire to own one was a desire for connection, a wish to be part of a team that could be summoned at a moment's notice to save the world. Number 18 describes the flesh of Lord Zed. When Lord Zed arrived in the second season, he terrified the audience. Unlike Rita, who was a sorceress in a dress, Zed was a physical monster. His design was a grotesque masterpiece of exposed muscle tissue and silver exoskeletal tubing. He had no face, only a metal visor and a brain exposed to the air. He looked like a flayed being, constantly seething with anger. His staff, tipped with a Z, could transform innocuous objects into terrifying monsters. The lighting in his scenes was often red, bathing the Moon Palace in a blood-soaked hue that felt significantly more mature than the previous season. Parents complained that he was too scary, too visceral for a children's show. This backlash actually forced the writers to soften his character over time, but his initial appearance remains a moment of genuine horror, a reminder that the villains were not just playing a game, they were nightmares made flesh. Number 19 is the Dear John letter. One of the most grounding human moments in the franchise's history involved no monsters at all. It was a letter. When Kimberly, the Pink Ranger, left the show to pursue gymnastics, she didn't just disappear. She broke up with Tommy via a letter read in a voiceover. For a generation of children invested in their relationship, this was a heartbreak that felt incredibly real. The scene where Tommy reads the letter, sitting alone, stripped the show of its fantasy elements and left only the raw sting of teenage romance ending. It was a quieter kind of pain than a battle injury. It marked the passage of time and the reality that childhood crushes don't last forever. The Pink Ranger was past a cat and life moved on, but the phantom memory of that original team dynamic and the romance that anchored it lingered like a ghost in the machine, a sentimental scar on the narrative. Number 20 is the repetition of the morph. If you watch the show, the sequence is burned into your retinas. The screen splits into panels, or a background of lightning appears. The characters shout the names of prehistoric creatures: mastodon, pterodactyl, triceratops, saber-toothed tiger, tyrannosaurus. Then, the transformation sequence begins. A stock footage clip of heads dissolving into helmets, sparks flying, and bodies striking a pose. This sequence was repeated in every single episode. It was a ritual, a chant. To an adult, it was filler to pad the runtime. To a child, it was the hype moment, the crescendo. The repetition provided a rhythmic comfort. You knew exactly what was coming, and you knew exactly how it would sound. The background colors, black, pink, blue, yellow, red, flashing across the screen created a hypnotic effect. It was the moment the tension broke, the signal that the heroes had arrived. And for those 30 seconds, everything in the world was synchronized and powerful. Number 21 is the Artisan of Evil. While Rita Repulsa screamed her orders, the true engine of her empire was a quiet, soft-spoken artist named Finster. Residing in the back of the palace, Finster was a craftsman who sculpted monsters out of clay with the delicate hands of a potter. This added a strange, tactile texture to the villainy. We watched him kneading the grey dough, smoothing the edges of a wing or a claw, treating these abominations like cherished sculptures. He would then place them into the monster matic, a bizarre machine that functioned like a kiln, baking the clay figures until they emerged as living, breathing threats. There was something deeply unsettling yet fascinating about this process. It suggested that the monsters weren't just summoned, they were designed. It gave the evil a creative aspect, implying that every creature the Rangers fought was a unique piece of art, fired in an oven and sent down to Earth, only to be destroyed, forcing the weary artist to return to his wheel and start the process all over again. Number 22 is the mystery of the Zoo 2 footage. For decades, fans noticed a subtle shift in the visual quality of the battles during the second season, but few understood why. The truth is a fascinating piece of production history known as Zoo 2. When the American show became a global juggernaut, they ran out of Japanese footage from the original Zyuranger series. Instead of cancelling the show, Saban did something unprecedented. They commissioned the Japanese studio, Toei, to film brand new action sequences specifically for the American market. These monsters never appeared in a Japanese show. They were ghosts created solely for the US. This footage had a distinct look. The monsters were often goofier, the fights more acrobatic, and the violence slightly toned down. It represents a unique cultural handshake, a moment where the source material began to bend to the will of the adaptation, creating a batch of episodes that exist in a strange limbo between two nations and two creative visions. Number 23 is the geology of the battlefield. If you watched enough episodes, you began to recognize the terrain. The Power Rangers didn't fight in a city. They fought in a dry, dusty purgatory of tilted sandstone slabs. This location is the Vasquez Rocks Natural Area Park in California. But to the viewer, it was simply outside. The jagged, uplifted rock formations provided a prehistoric backdrop that fit the dinosaur motif perfectly. The dust that kicked up when a Zord took a step, the way the sunlight hit the sharp angles of the rocks, it all created a consistent visual language for the battles. It felt desolate, removed from civilization, which conveniently explained why no bystanders were ever stepped on during the giant robot fights. This specific geography became as iconic as the suits themselves, a rugged, beige theatre of war that has hosted Captain Kirk, the Flintstones, and the mighty Morphin Power Rangers, grounding the fantasy in the hard, dry reality of the California desert. Number 24 is the shadow of the peace conference. In the middle of the second season, a jarring shift occurred that confused children and fueled rumors for years. Jason, Zach, and Trini, three of the original team members, suddenly stopped appearing on screen. The show explained that they were selected for a peace conference in Switzerland. In reality, the actors had walked out due to a contract dispute regarding their low pay. For weeks, the show used obvious body doubles, filming them from the back, or using recycled footage and dubbed voices that didn't quite match. There was an eerie, uncanny valley quality to these episodes. The characters were there, but their souls were missing. It was the first time the real world of Hollywood business intruded on the fantasy. The awkwardness of their departure, culminating in a transfer of power ceremony where the actors were still absent, left a lingering feeling of unresolved tension, a crack in the perfect facade of the team's unity. Number 25 is the sentience of Saba. When Tommy returned as the White Ranger, he didn't just get a new suit, he received a weapon that could talk. Saba was a short sword with the head of a tiger, an animatronic prop that moved its mouth and blinked. This introduced a new dynamic to the solitary nature of the cockpit scenes. Previously, the Rangers shouted commands into the void. Now, Tommy had a partner. Saba had a distinct, slightly haughty voice, and often provided exposition or tactical advice. The prop itself was a marvel of toy-like design, white and gold with a curved blade that looked impossible to sheath. The relationship between the White Ranger and his sword bridged the gap between a weapon and a pet. It reinforced the idea that the power was alive, conscious, and guiding the hero. The mechanical whirring of Saba's mouth movements is a subtle sound that remains stuck in the auditory memory of the 90s. Number 26 is the archetype of the food monster. The monsters in Power Rangers often tapped into primal childhood fears or obsessions, and none were more memorable than the pudgy pig. This creature, wearing a Roman gladiator helmet and sporting an enormous appetite, didn't want to destroy the city. It wanted to eat all the food in the food festival. This introduced a surreal, almost fever dream quality to the stakes. The Rangers weren't fighting for the survival of humanity, but for the preservation of a buffet. The monster forced the Rangers to feed it spicy radishes to defeat it. This blend of high-stakes martial arts and low-stakes slapstick was the secret source of the show's appeal. It made the monsters feel less like demons and more like mischievous spirits. The image of a giant pig monster descending on a picnic table is a testament to the show's willingness to embrace the absurd, creating a safe, silly space within the action genre. Number 27 is the anxiety of Alpha 5. In the command center, while Zordon provided the wisdom, the emotional labor was performed by a small, golden robot named Alpha 5. Voiced by Richard Stephen Horvitz, Alpha was a bundle of neurotic energy. His catchphrase, "Ai yi 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 yi," was the soundtrack to every crisis. Alpha walked with a distinctive shuffle, his saucer-shaped head flashing with red lights in sync with his speech. He was the surrogate for the child audience, often panicked, easily overwhelmed, but fiercely loyal. The physical acting of the character, performed by a suit actor bending deeply at the waist and waving his arms, gave Alpha a vulnerability that metal robots rarely possess. He was the caretaker of the team, pressing buttons with frantic urgency. The sound of his feet shuffling across the command center floor and the electronic warble of his voice created a texture of constant, high-stakes anxiety that underscored the calmness of Zordon. Number 28 is the intended finale of Doomsday. Toward the end of the first season, the writers crafted a two-part episode titled Doomsday that was originally meant to end the series. The tone of these episodes was noticeably darker. The footage, lifted from the Japanese finale, featured a stormy grey sky and a level of destruction that felt permanent. The villain, Cyclopsis, was a war machine that systematically dismantled the Megazord. The Rangers were pushed to their absolute limit, stripped of their Zords and forced to retreat. The citizens of Angel Grove were shown terrified and huddled together, grounding the threat in human emotion. Even though the show was renewed and continued for decades, Doomsday stands as a relic of a potential ending. It carries the weight of finality, a Ragnarok for the Saturday morning crowd, where the music was more somber and the victory felt earned through genuine desperation rather than the usual formula. Number 29 is the disappearance of Scorpina. In the gallery of rogues, Scorpina stood out. She was a female warrior who fought alongside Goldar, but unlike the other monsters, she had a human face. Until she grew giant and transformed into a scorpion-like beast. She was a fierce opponent, often overwhelming the Rangers in hand-to-hand combat, and then she simply vanished. One day, she was a primary antagonist. The next, she was gone from the scripts, never to be mentioned again. This was another casualty of the footage shortage. The Japanese actress was no longer available, and the American production didn't recast her. Her absence created a void in the villain hierarchy. For a child watching, it was a loose thread, a mystery that was never solved. She exists now only in the early episodes, a formidable ghost who haunts the periphery of the narrative, a reminder of the show's disjointed and scavenged nature. Number 30 is the destruction of the Thunderzords. The transition from Season 2 to Season 3 was marked by a moment of genuine trauma, the total destruction of the Thunderzords. We had grown accustomed to the Zords being invincible, or at least repairable, but in the Ninja Quest arc, we watched as the monsters Rito Revolto and his crew systematically tore the Zords apart. The Thunder Megazord didn't just fall, it disintegrated. Limbs were severed, the head was crushed. The special effects depicted the Zords exploding into pieces, leaving the Rangers powerless and watching from the ground. It was a shocking subversion of the power fantasy. The toys we held in our hands were shown broken on screen. It taught a generation that even the strongest armor can fail. The image of the Zord wreckage smoking on the battlefield signaled the end of the Thunder era and forced the Rangers and the audience to accept that they had to start over from nothing. Number 31 is the defeat at the Turbo finale. Power Rangers usually followed a strict rhythm of victory. The monster grew, the Zords combined, and the day was saved. However, the season finale of Power Rangers Turbo, titled Chase into Space, shattered this rule. The Rangers lost. Their command center was raided and destroyed by Divatox's forces. The Turbo Zords were demolished. The mentor figure, Demetria, had abandoned them. We watched, stunned, as the heroes stood amidst the smoking ruins of their base, stripped of their powers and their protection. There was a palpable sense of hopelessness that was entirely new to the franchise. The image of the 4 powerless teenagers piling into a standard NASA space shuttle, blasting off into the stratosphere while leaving their friend Justin behind on Earth, felt like a true departure. It was a bleak, cliffhanger ending that signaled the death of the safety net. The playground was destroyed, and the characters were hurled into the cold, silent vacuum of the unknown. Number 32 is the shadow of cancellation. When Power Rangers in Space began production, it was written with a specific, melancholy purpose. It was intended to be the end. Ratings had plummeted during the car-themed Turbo season, and the network was preparing to pull the plug. This real-world desperation bled into the creative DNA of the show. The writers, knowing they had nothing left to lose, swung for the fences. They abandoned the monster of the week high school formula and wrote a serialized space opera. The budget was tighter, the sets were darker, and the tone was more serious. There is a specific creative texture that comes from impending doom, a freedom to break the rules. This final season energy gave In Space a gravitas that the previous seasons lacked. Every episode felt like it was building toward a definitive conclusion, creating a narrative momentum that inadvertently saved the franchise by producing what many fans consider to be its finest hour. Number 33 is the claustrophobia of the Astro megaship. For years, the Rangers had lived in the sunny suburbs of California, visiting their base only for briefings. In Power Rangers in Space, the base became their home. The Astro megaship was a labyrinth of industrial corridors, sliding doors, and mess halls. The set design relied heavily on greys, silvers, and low lighting, creating a submarine-like atmosphere. The Rangers were isolated, drifting through the cosmos with no parents, no school, and no backup. This shift in setting changed the dynamic of the team. They were no longer just friends. They were roommates surviving in a pressurized tin can. The hum of the ship's engine replaced the birdsong of Angel Grove. This isolation made the team unit tighter, fostering a sense of us against the universe. The ship itself, with its sentient computer DECA, felt like a living character, a metallic womb protecting them from the infinite blackness outside. Number 34 is the solitude of Andros. The Red Ranger of this era was a departure from the jock archetype established by Jason and Tommy. Andros was an alien from the colony of KO-35, a telekinetic loner who had spent years fighting a losing war. He wore a grey cloak and moved with a suspicion that bordered on paranoia. When the Earth teenagers met him, he was reluctant to accept their help. This friction was compelling. Andros wasn't a leader because he was the most popular guy in school. He was a leader because he was a survivor. His backstory was tragic, defined by the kidnapping of his sister, Corona. This introduced a personal vendetta to the narrative. Andros wasn't just fighting to save the world. He was fighting to put his family back together. His brooding presence added a layer of jagged maturity to the show, anchoring the space opera antics in genuine human loss. Number 35 is the horror of the Psycho Rangers. Villain groups in Power Rangers were typically incompetent, serving as comic relief as much as a threat. The Psycho Rangers were different. Created by the main villain Astronema, these 5 robotic counterparts were designed with a singular, terrifying purpose: to hunt down their specific color match. They were faster, stronger, and significantly more unhinged than the heroes. They didn't just want to win, they were obsessed. Their designs were jagged and demonic, and their voices were distorted, often overlapping in a manic cacophony. The Psycho Ranger arc introduced a horror element to the series. The Rangers were genuinely outmatched, forced to use stealth and trickery to survive. The sound of the Psycho Ranger's footsteps, heavy, metallic clanking, instilled a genuine sense of dread. They represented the Rangers' dark reflections, a manifestation of power, stripped of morality, and twisted into pure, obsessive violence. Number 36 is the aesthetics of Astronema. The primary antagonist of In Space was not a screaming witch or a flayed monster, but a leather-clad warrior princess named Astronema. Played by Melody Perkins, she brought a cold, calculated charisma to the role. What made her instantly memorable, however, was her ever-changing appearance. In almost every episode, Astronema sported a different wig: bobs, long cuts, purple, red, blue, black. It became a visual signature, a display of vanity and power. She commanded the Dark Fortress not with shouting, but with icy glares and a laser staff. Her storyline was the emotional core of the season. She was revealed to be Corona, Andros's long-lost sister, brainwashed by evil. This familial connection turned the battles into a tragedy. Every time the Red Ranger fought the main villain, he was fighting his own blood. It added a Shakespearean weight to the laser battles, transforming the conflict from good versus evil into brother versus sister. Number 37 is the secret of the Galaxy gliders. To traverse the vast distances of space, or at least the distances between the ship and the monster, the Rangers didn't use motorcycles. They used Galaxy gliders. These were essentially intergalactic surfboards. The visual of the 5 Rangers standing on flying boards, surfing through starfields, is the peak of late 90s extreme culture blended with sci-fi. It was absurd, yet undeniably cool. The physics of it made no sense. There is no air in space to surf on, but the imagery aligned perfectly with the era's obsession with board sports. It gave the flight sequences a kinetic, free-flowing energy. The CGI used to render these sequences was primitive, often showing the Rangers as stiff, low-resolution models against a scrolling star background. But to a child's eye, it was freedom. It was the ultimate fantasy of flight, unencumbered by cockpits or seatbelts, just a teenager and a board against the infinite void. Number 38 is the crossover of Shell-Shocked. In one of the most fever-dream moments of 90s television, the Power Rangers met the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This episode exists as a bizarre artifact of corporate synergy, as Saban owned the rights to the live-action Ninja Turtles, the next mutation series at the time. The Turtles were summoned by Astronema and brainwashed to fight the Rangers on the Dark Fortress. Seeing the bulky, rubber-suited Turtles fighting the spandex-clad Rangers was a surreal clash of textures. It felt like a child smashing 2 unrelated toy boxes together. The Turtles eventually snapped out of the spell, and the 2 teams fought side by side. To watch Donatello and the Black Ranger fight together was to witness the convergence of the 2 biggest pillars of 90s boy culture. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated fan service that feels almost hallucinated when remembered today. Number 39 is the gathering of the United Alliance of Evil. As the season spiraled toward its conclusion, the show expanded its scope to include the entire history of the franchise. We were introduced to the United Alliance of Evil, a gathering of every major villain from the past 6 years. Rita Repulsa, Lord Zed, the Machine Empire, and Divatox were all shown sitting at a banquet table, toasting to the conquest of the universe. This was world building on a massive scale. It confirmed that all these seasons were connected, that these villains knew each other, and that they were organized. Seeing Zed and Rita again, not as the main threats, but as part of a larger hierarchy under the terrifying Dark Spectre, raised the stakes immeasurably. It made the universe feel ancient and crowded with darkness. The viewer realized that the Rangers weren't just fighting one ship, they were fighting a galactic history of evil that had finally unified for one final strike. Number 40 is the shattering of the energy tube. The finale, Countdown to Destruction, is widely regarded as the perfect ending. The universe was overrun. The Rangers were defeated, their identities revealed to the public. The citizens of Angel Grove stood up to protect them in a moment of moving solidarity. But the true climax occurred in the Dark Fortress. Andros stood before Zordon, his mentor, who was trapped in his energy tube. To save the universe, Zordon ordered Andros to shatter the tube, sacrificing his life to release a wave of pure good energy. The hesitation of the Red Ranger, the silence of the scene, and the eventual swing of the sword marked the death of childhood for the franchise. When the tube shattered, the Z-wave swept across the galaxy, turning villains into sand or purifying them into humans. Zordon was gone. The face that had guided us since 1993 was extinguished. It was a moment of profound finality, a beautiful, tragic conclusion that closed the book on the first era of Power Rangers forever. Number 41 is the Dome of Terra Venture. Following the destruction of the Zordon era, the franchise took a bold narrative leap. Instead of protecting a city, the setting became a mobile space colony seeking a new world. Terra Venture was a massive city encased in a glass dome, drifting through the dark ocean of the cosmos. The visuals of this colony were a mix of utopian futurism and model-making charm. We saw lush parks, skyscrapers, and industrial sectors, all contained within a fragile bubble of oxygen. The concept of leaving Earth behind, not just for a mission, but forever, gave Lost Galaxy a pioneer spirit. It tapped into the classic sci-fi trope of the generation ship, where society exists in transit. The establishing shots of the colony moving past nebulae, accompanied by a sweeping, orchestral score that felt grander than previous seasons, evoked a sense of lonely majesty. It was a self-contained world where the horizon wasn't the sky, but the curving grid of the dome above, constantly reminding the citizens of the thin line between their artificial paradise and the vacuum outside. Number 42 is The Sword in the Stone. The acquisition of power in Lost Galaxy abandoned the technological handoff of the past. There were no morphers handed out in a lab. There was only destiny. On the jungle planet of Miranoi, 5 quasar sabers were embedded in a rock, waiting for the chosen ones. This was pure Arthurian legend, transplanted into a space opera. The scene where the future Rangers pulled the sabers from the stone was charged with mystical energy. It shifted the source of their power from science to ancient magic. The swords themselves were beautiful props, heavy and chromed, with animal crests on the hilts. When the Rangers transformed, they didn't push a button. They held the blades to the sky. This change in ritual added a knightly quality to the team. They weren't just teenagers with gadgets. They were paladins wielding artifacts of immense power, bound to the weapons that chose them in a moment of desperate heroism. Number 43 is the shredded shirt of Leo Corbett. In the chaotic pilot episode, Leo, the Red Ranger, wasn't supposed to be there. He was a stowaway. During the initial invasion by the villains, his shirt was torn open, revealing a ripped grey undershirt. For some reason, he wore this tattered clothing for what felt like an eternity of screen time, including the opening credits sequence that aired for the entire season. It became a strange visual anchor for the character, a symbol of his rogue, wrong side of the track's origin. Unlike the polished, buttoned-up leaders of the past, Leo looked scraped up, messy, and desperate. That specific image of him screaming, "Go Galactic!" with his clothes falling apart, grounded him as an underdog. It was a texture detail that made the battle damage feel permanent, a reminder that he had literally fought his way onto the team and into a destiny that wasn't originally meant for him. Number 44 is the sacrifice of Kendrix Morgan. This is perhaps the most somber chapter in the archive. In the crossover episode, The Power of Pink, the Pink Galaxy Ranger, Kendricks, sacrificed herself to save the Earth from a poison storm. She didn't just lose her powers, she walked into the light and vanished as a spirit. This was not merely a plot twist, it was a necessity born of real-world tragedy. The actress, Valerie Vernon, had been diagnosed with leukemia and had to leave the show immediately for treatment. The writers handled her departure with a level of grace and finality that was shocking for a children's show. The silence that followed her disappearance, the image of her saber sitting alone on the rock, and the tears of the cast were genuine. It broke the invincibility shield of the Power Rangers. It taught the audience that heroes could fall, and that sometimes the helmet doesn't protect you from the fragility of the human body. Number 45 is the vengeance of the Magna Defender. Before the concept of the anti-hero was common in kids' TV, there was the Magna Defender. He was a knight in heavy, bull-themed armor who arrived not to save the day, but to kill the villain, Scorpius. He was willing to destroy the colony and everyone on it if it meant getting his revenge for the death of his son. His voice was deep, filtered through a metallic echo, and he moved with the weight of a tank. He didn't have the agility of the Rangers. He had a shotgun that doubled as a sword. His presence introduced a moral grey area. He was a good guy who did bad things. The eventual redemption of the character, sacrificing himself to save the colony he once threatened, was a redemption arc of operatic proportions. The visual of his cape billowing in the wind as he stood alone on a cliff remains one of the hardest, most stoic images in the franchise's history. Number 46 is the public service of Lightspeed Rescue. With the turn of the millennium, the franchise grounded itself in reality. Power Rangers Lightspeed. Rescue discarded the concept of teenagers with attitude entirely. The team consisted of adults, a firefighter, a pilot, a lifeguard, an extreme sports athlete, and a paramedic. Their identities were public. They were employees of a government organization. This shift changed the texture of the show from a secret superhero fantasy to a civil service drama. When the alarm rang, they didn't sneak out of class. They slid down poles and drove specialized vehicles. The Lightspeed jackets they wore were uniforms, not costumes. This era celebrated the heroism of first responders. It suggested that you didn't need to be chosen by a magical head in a jar to be a hero. You just needed to be trained and willing to do the job. The sirens that wailed in the background of the base weren't sci-fi alarms. They were the familiar, urgent sounds of a city's emergency services. Number 47 is the silver of the Titanium Ranger. Fact 47 concerns a unique anomaly. The Titanium Ranger was the first Power Ranger created entirely in the United States, with no Japanese counterpart. Because there was no source footage, the designers had free rein. They created a suit that was sleek, silver, and accented with gold, visually distinct from the rest of the colorful team. However, the lack of Japanese footage meant the character was expensive to film, as every scene required original production. Consequently, the Titanium Ranger, Ryan Mitchell, was frequently written out of episodes, often sent on missions off-screen. The in-story explanation was a cursed cobra tattoo on his back that would climb up his spine every time he morphed, threatening to kill him. This physical manifestation of danger, a tattoo moving across skin, was a visceral ticking clock. It added a layer of body horror and tragedy to the character, making his rare appearances feel precious and fraught with mortal peril. Number 48 is the weight of the super train. Most Zords were animals or cars, but Lightspeed Rescue introduced the super train. This was a colossal sequence of high-speed rail cars that launched from an underwater bay, rising up on tracks that assembled themselves in the sky. The sheer mass of this Zord was emphasized by the sound design, the screech of metal on metal, the heavy chug of the engines, the steam venting from the brakes. When the trains combined into the Megazord, it didn't look agile. It looked like a walking fortress. It was a brick of painted die-cast metal that towered over the monsters. The footage often filmed the model from low angles, emphasizing its lumbering, unstoppable momentum. It captured the childhood fascination with locomotives, turning the romance of the railway into a weapon of mass destruction. The supertrain didn't run on magic. It ran on heavy engineering and diesel, a testament to human industrial might. Number 49 is the demonic court of Queen Bansheera. The villains of Lightspeed Rescue were not aliens from space. They were demons from below. They had been sealed in a tomb in the desert, and their aesthetic was decidedly occult. The foot soldiers, batlings, were small gargoyles. The generals were monsters based on elements like water and fire, but designed with a twisted, hellish look. Presiding over them was Queen Bansheera, a villain who spent most of the season as a disembodied spirit or a malformed torso before regaining her full form. She was uniquely cruel, devoid of the campy humor of Rita Repulsa. She viewed her own son, Prince Olympius, as expendable fodder. The final arc, where she drags her son into the shadow world to save herself, was a display of pure malice. This shifted the tone from conquering the world to a spiritual war against an ancient subterranean evil, giving the season a darker, supernatural undercurrent. Number 50 is the tactical precision of Carter Grayson. The Red Ranger of this season, Carter Grayson, was a firefighter. He brought a shoot first, ask questions later mentality to the role that was refreshing. While other rangers might pose or give speeches, Carter would simply draw his blaster and fire. There is a famous scene where a monster is monologuing, preparing for a duel, and Carter just runs him over with a Humvee. This pragmatic approach defined his leadership. He was a professional. His uniform was always pressed, his haircut regulation short. He treated monster attacks like a 5-alarm fire, a problem to be neutralized efficiently. This lack of hesitation, this blue-collar heroism, made him one of the most competent Red Rangers in history. He grounded the fantastical elements of the show with the grit of a man who runs into burning buildings for a living, proving that the bravest thing you can be is a professional doing your job. Number 51 is the opening casualty of Time Force. By the year 2001, the Power Rangers formula was well established, but Time Force began by subverting it immediately. In the very first episode, the Red Ranger, Alex, was brutally defeated. He wasn't just beaten, he was left for dead amidst the wreckage of burning rubble in a futuristic city. For a show that rarely dealt with mortality, seeing the team leader fall before the season even truly began was a shock to the system. It established a tone of desperation and grief that permeated the entire series. The remaining Rangers, Jen, Lucas, Trip, and Katie were not recruits on an adventure. They were fugitives on a mission of vengeance. They traveled back in time to the year 2001, not to save the world, but to catch the man who killed their leader. This revenge-driven plot gave the show a noir-like atmosphere, a heaviness that suggested the colourful suits were hiding deep, unresolved trauma. Number 52 is the biometrics of the Morpher. The transformation device of this era was sleek, futuristic, and oddly restrictive. The Morpher was DNA locked. It wasn't a toy that anyone could pick up and use. It required a genetic match. This plot point was the hinge upon which the entire season turned. It forced the Rangers from the future to seek out Wes Collins, the spoilt ancestor of their fallen leader, simply because he had the same blood. It stripped the chosen one trope of its mysticism and replaced it with biological necessity. Wes wasn't chosen because he was worthy. He was chosen because he was a genetic key. The Morpher itself, worn on the wrist, featured a holographic blade design and a distinct digital voice that announced the time. The sound of it locking onto the wrist, a sharp, high-pitched swing, represented the binding of destiny to biology, a technological shackle that forced two strangers from different centuries to become one hero. Number 53 is the flesh and steel of Ransik. The villain of Time Force, Ransik, was a tragic figure. He was a mutant, born from the sludge of a genetically perfect society, rejected by the utopia of the year 3000. His design reflected this duality, part human, part machine, with metal gears fused into his skin. His primary weapon was a sword that he physically pulled out of his own body, sliding a bone-like blade from a sheath in his leg. This act of self-mutilation to draw a weapon was visceral and disturbing. It signaled that his violence came from within, born of his own pain. Ransik wasn't evil for the sake of evil. He was a revolutionary, fighting against a society that deemed him impure. His motivation was prejudice. This added a layer of social commentary to the show that was surprisingly mature, painting the villains not as monsters, but as the downtrodden products of a sterile, uncaring civilization. Number 54 is the inversion of leadership. For the first time in the franchise's history, the Red Ranger was not the leader. That burden fell to Jen Scott's, the Pink Ranger. She was the officer in charge, the strategist, and the warrior. Wes, the Red Ranger, was the rookie, a rich kid with no combat experience who had to be trained. This dynamic shifted the gender politics of the show significantly. Jen was cold, professional, and driven by the grief of losing her fiancé. Her relationship with Wes was complex. He was a ghost of the man she loved, a constant, painful reminder of what she had lost. Watching her command the team with a stern, no-nonsense authority redefined what a Pink Ranger could be. She wasn't the damsel or the heart of the team. She was the steel spine, proving that the color of the suit did not dictate the strength of the soldier. Number 55 is the dust of the clock tower. The Ranger's base of operations in Time Force was not a spaceship or a lab, but an abandoned clock tower overlooking the city. It was a set filled with gears, dust, and golden light filtering through massive clock faces. To blend in, the Rangers started a business called Nick of Time Odd Jobs. We watched them sweeping floors, painting fences, and struggling to pay rent. This mundane domesticity grounded the high-concept time travel plot. They were soldiers from the future, yet they were worried about buying groceries. The clock tower itself was a symbol of their predicament, stuck in time, living inside a machine that measured the seconds ticking away until they had to return. The echoing acoustics of that large, hollow room emphasized their isolation. They were a family of castaways, huddled together in a drafty attic, hiding their futuristic technology under drop cloths. Number 56 is the floating island of the Animarium. With Power Rangers Wild Force, the setting shifted to the fantastical. The base was a turtle-shaped island floating in the sky, a sanctuary for nature detached from the pollution below. This Animarium was a lush, green paradise, a jarring contrast to the grey cityscapes where the battles took place. The environmental message was heavy-handed and sincere. The Rangers were chosen by the animals themselves. The Zords were not machines, but semi-sentient crystal beasts. The visual of the island hiding in the clouds, undetectable to the human eye, tapped into the secret garden fantasy. That magic exists just out of sight. The sound of the wind whipping across the floating plains and the roar of the lion Zord echoing from the sky gave the season a mythical, fable-like quality, positioning the Rangers as eco-warriors fighting against the industrial sludge of the villainous orgs. Number 57 is the madness of Dr. Adler. The villainy in Wild Force took a turn for the psychological. The main antagonist, Master Org, was eventually revealed to be a human, Dr. Victor Adler. He wasn't a demon, he was a jealous scientist who swallowed the seeds of an ancient evil to gain power, driven by envy over a woman. The scene where he consumes the organic pulsating seeds is a moment of pure body horror. We watched a man voluntarily destroy his own humanity out of spite. His transformation was slow and painful, a cautionary tale about obsession. Unlike the cackling space witches of the past, Adler was terrifying because he was mundane. He was a man in a coat, lurking in the ruins, driven by a very human hatred. The revelation that the Red Ranger was the son of the woman Adler loved added an Oedipal darkness to the final confrontation that felt almost Shakespearean in its tragedy. Number 58 is the reunion of Forever Red. To celebrate the 10th anniversary of the franchise, the show orchestrated a logistical miracle. They gathered 10 Red Rangers from previous seasons for a single mission on the moon. Forever Red is less an episode and more a love letter to the fans. Seeing Jason, the original Red Ranger, standing next to the futuristic Quantum Ranger, or hearing the distinct morphing calls of 10 different eras play in sequence, was a sensory overload. The episode reused the beat-up Beetleborgs costumes as the enemy generals, a charming bit of budget-saving recycling. But the core memory is the lineup: 10 distinct helmets, 10 distinct histories, standing side by side against the red dust of the lunar surface. It legitimized the continuity. It told the viewer that every hour they had spent watching this show for the past decade mattered, that it was all part of one massive, interconnected legacy. Number 59 is the uncanny valley of the CGI Zords. Wild Force relied heavily on computer-generated animals for its Zords, and the technology of 2002 was struggling to keep up with the ambition. The animals, sharks, bison, tigers, often looked like glossy, weightless cartoons skating across the screen. There was a strange disconnect when these digital creations combined into the practical, suit-based Megazord. However, there was a specific charm to this awkwardness. The Soulbird cockpit, where the Rangers stood inside a glowing, translucent space, felt ethereal. The way the Zords would descend from the animarium, running on invisible sky paths, had a dreamlike logic. While the textures haven't aged well at the time, seeing a legion of 100 different Zords, mostly CGI spheres, rolling across the battlefield felt like an epic expansion of the universe, suggesting that the power of nature was limitless, even if the render times were not. Number 60 is the end of the Saban era. The conclusion of Wild Force marked a massive, invisible fault line in the franchise's history. Behind the scenes, Haim Saban sold the franchise to Disney. The production, which had been rooted in Los Angeles since 1993, packed up and moved to New Zealand to lower costs. This was the end of the classic feel, the specific sunlight of California, the familiar warehouses, the American stunt actors who had grown with the show. It all ended here. The finale, where the Rangers return their powers and the animarium flies off into the sky, serves as a meta-narrative farewell. The jackets were hung up, the actors moved on. The show that had defined a decade of American children's television was leaving home. It was the closing of the archive's first volume, a transition from the gritty, low-budget charm of the 90s to the polished, scenic era of the 2000s. Number 61 is The Light of the Southern Hemisphere. When the production moved to Auckland, New Zealand for Power Rangers Ninja Storm, the visual texture of the show underwent a radical transformation. Gone were the dusty, beige canyons of California. In their place came deep, vibrant greens and a harsh, clear sunlight that gave every frame a high-contrast gloss. The forests looked like prehistoric jungles, damp, fern-filled, and ancient. This change in geography altered the mood of the battles. The monsters were no longer fighting in a quarry. They were fighting on lush cliffsides overlooking a churning, dark blue ocean. Even the quarries in New Zealand looked different, greyer, wetter, more industrial. This shift stripped away the American suburb illusion that had held for a decade. The world of Ninja Storm felt cleaner, sharper, and slightly alien, reinforcing the idea that this was a fresh start, a reboot of the universe that traded the grit of the 90s for the polished, verdant sheen of the early 2000s. Number 62 is the humor of Lothor. The villain of Ninja Storm, Lothor, broke the mold of the terrified, screaming antagonist. He was a space ninja warlord, yes, but he was also surprisingly relaxed. He treated world domination like a tedious middle management job. He often broke the fourth wall, making jokes about the script or the incompetence of his own monsters. This meta-humor was a defining trait of the Disney era. It signaled that the show was becoming self-aware. Lothor would sit on his throne, not seething with rage, but sighing with exasperation, like a tired dad dealing with unruly children. His lair wasn't a dungeon of torture. It was a spaceship bridge where the minions hung out and gossiped. This levity made the stakes feel different, less apocalyptic, more like a Saturday morning cartoon come to life. It invited the audience to laugh with the show rather than just at it, acknowledging the inherent absurdity of giant robots and spandex ninjas. Number 63 is the bond of the Thunder Rangers. In the color spectrum of the team, the Crimson and Navy Rangers stood apart. They were not red and blue. They were darker, moodier shades that implied a harder edge. Blake and Hunter Bradley were introduced not as friends, but as rivals from a rival ninja academy. Their suits had a beetle motif, heavy plating, pincer-like visors that contrasted with the sleek, airy designs of the Wind Rangers. Their initial antagonism brought a legitimate threat to the heroes. Reminiscent of the Green Ranger saga, but with the added weight of brotherhood. They fought as a synchronized unit, their moves mirroring each other perfectly. The sound of their thunderstaffs clashing and the visual of their dark, insectoid Zords combining added a heavy mechanical texture to the battles. They represented the cool older brother energy, the dangerous outsiders who eventually brought their strength into the fold. Number 64 is the wisdom of the hamster. There is perhaps no image more surreal in the franchise than Sensei Watanabe. The mentor of the Ninja Storm team was a wise, elderly ninja master who had been transformed into a CGI guinea pig, often mistaken for a hamster. He didn't float in a tube or appear on a screen. He walked around on a small model set of a Japanese dojo. The juxtaposition of his profound philosophical advice, delivered with absolute gravitas by actor Grant McFarland, coming from a furry digital rodent, was a masterstroke of camp. It required the actors to act against a tennis ball or empty space, treating the small creature with supreme respect. The sheer audacity of this creative choice defines the season. It asked the audience to suspend their disbelief to the breaking point, and in doing so, it created a character that was memorable precisely because he was so wonderfully, undeniably ridiculous. Number 65 is the return of the Doctor. With Power Rangers Dino Thunder, the nostalgia engine was fired up in earnest. Tommy Oliver, the legendary Green and White Ranger, returned as a main cast member. But he wasn't the teenager we remembered. He was Dr. O, a paleontology professor with a PhD and a sensible haircut. Seeing the face of the 90s franchise standing in a classroom, wearing a lab coat and glasses, was a jarring but comforting passage of time. He bridged the gap between the generations. When he eventually picked up the Black Dino gem to become a Ranger once more, it felt like an athlete coming out of retirement for one last season. His morph sequence was slower, more deliberate. The black Brachio Ranger suit was ornate, with gold trim and a collar, signaling his status as the elder statesman. His presence legitimized the new team, passing the torch not just symbolically, but literally every single episode. Number 66 is the Ink of the White Ranger. The 6th Ranger arc in Dino Thunder focused on Trent Mercer, and it was steeped in a visual language of psychological horror. Trent didn't just find a coin, he was possessed by a symbiotic gem. The visuals of his transformation were unique. Black, ink-like veins would crawl up his neck and face, a physical manifestation of the corruption taking hold. It looked painful. The White Ranger suit itself was a masterpiece of aggressive design. It was monochrome, sharp, and featured a dazzle camouflage pattern on the visor. His weapon, the Drago sword, was a long quill-like blade that he wielded with a terrifying silent precision. Unlike the shouting villains, the evil White Ranger often fought with a cold, predatory silence. He was a sketch brought to life, a drawing that bled into the real world, representing the internal struggle of a teenager fighting against the dark destiny his father had written for him. Number 67 is the Legacy of Power archive. In the 4th episode of Dino Thunder, the show paused to acknowledge its own history. Dr. Oliver sat the new team down and played them a video diary. For 20 minutes, we watched a clip show of every previous season. We saw Jason, the Zeo Crystal, the turbo cars, the galaxy lights. For a child watching in 2004, this was a revelation. It was the first time the show explicitly confirmed that all these disparate seasons happened in the same timeline. It turned the lore into a history lesson. The grainy footage of the 90s clashed with the digital clarity of the 2000s, highlighting how much the world had changed. It gave the franchise a sense of weight and scale. The Power Rangers weren't just a TV show, they were a legacy, a baton passed through time, and watching the new teenagers react to the old footage felt like watching the audience accept their place in the lineage. Number 68 is the roar of the Biozords. The Zords in Dino Thunder were a return to the prehistoric, but with a technological twist. They were Biozords, creatures that were half animal, half machine. The Tyrannosaur was a bright red mechanical beast that didn't just walk, it ran with the fluidity of a raptor. The sound design for these Zords was distinct, a mix of animalistic roars and hydraulic hisses. They had personality. They would wag their tails or tilt their heads like dogs. This made them feel more like pets than vehicles. The combination sequence was a chaotic assembly of motorized parts, often accompanied by the distinct sound of power drills whirring. The Thundersaurus Megazord was a sleek, agile robot that used a spinning drill for an arm. It moved away from the blocky, tank-like movement of the past and embraced a kinetic, anime-inspired agility that matched the high-energy pop-punk soundtrack of the season. Number 69 is the Nightmare of Mesogog. In stark contrast to the humorous Lothor, the villain of Dino Thunder, Mesogog was genuinely frightening. He was a mutant human-dinosaur hybrid with a design that was slimy, organic, and grotesque. His skin looked like wet scales, and his face was a rictus of exposed teeth and bone. He spoke in a whispery, rasping voice that sounded like dry leaves sliding over stone. His lair was a dark, misty laboratory that smelled of chemicals and damp earth. Mesogog represented the danger of science gone wrong. He was the dark reflection of Dr. Oliver, a scientist who wanted to revert the Earth to the Jurassic era, not through study, but through genetic force. His presence on screen lowered the temperature of the room. He was a monster who didn't scream. He plotted, and that quiet, calculated malice made him one of the most effective villains of the Disney era. Number 70 is the Shield of the Triassic. As the stakes escalated, the Red Ranger, Connor, unlocked a power that went beyond the standard team upgrade. The Triassic Ranger mode was a solitary evolution. The suit didn't just change color, it gained a massive triangular shield and heavy armor plating. The design was deep crimson and gold, radiating a regal power. But the most memorable aspect was the ability to drag monsters into the Triassic dimension, a red-hued, void-like pocket reality. This was a gladiatorial arena where physics didn't apply. The visual of the Red Ranger standing alone in this red void, shielded and invincible, separated him from the team. It was a power fantasy of total control. The heavy metallic thud of the shield locking into place, and the echo of the dimension created a sensory experience of invulnerability. a feeling that the chaotic battle had been paused and moved to a place where the hero could not lose. Number 71 is the near future of New Tech City. In 2005, Power Rangers SPD asked us to imagine the distant future of 2025. It presented a world where humanity had integrated with extraterrestrial life. The setting, New Tech City, was a sprawling metropolis of chrome skyscrapers, flying police cruisers, and aliens walking casually on the sidewalk. This was a police procedural wrapped in spandex. The show traded the mysticism of previous seasons for the rigid structure of law enforcement. The Rangers were officers. They stood at attention. They saluted. The aesthetic was dominated by flashing red and blue lights, the crackle of police radios, and the sterile grey of the precinct hallways. It felt structured, militaristic, and surprisingly lived in. The background actors wearing heavy rubber prosthetics to play alien citizens created a texture of a busy, multicultural galaxy. It was a vision of the future that felt optimistic yet bureaucratic, where saving the world was just another shift on the duty roster. Number 72 is the status of the B Squad. The heroes of SPD were not the elite, they were the leftovers. The show began by introducing the A Squad, a team of competent, helmet-wearing professionals who were the idols of the academy. Our protagonists, the B Squad, were the misfits, the street thief, the psychic, the washout. When the A Squad went missing, and later turned traitor, the B Squad was forced to step up. This underdog within the organization dynamic gave the team a chip on their shoulder. They weren't fighting for destiny, they were fighting for respect. They wore the uniforms, but they didn't fit in. Watching them struggle to march in step or salute correctly grounded the high-concept sci-fi. It was a story about the second-string players proving that heart and improvisation could outperform the cold perfection of the elite. The friction between them and their commander was palpable, adding a layer of workplace drama to the monster fights. Number 73 is the verdict of the judgment scanner. In a unique twist on the destroy the monster trope, the SPD Rangers didn't kill their enemies, they arrested them. The judgment scanner was a function of their morphers that acted as a judge, jury, and executioner. The visual of the morpher flashing between a green O for innocent and a red X for guilty introduced a moment of tension to every climax. We waited for the verdict, accompanied by a rapid electronic ticking sound. If the X appeared, the monster wasn't blown up. It was contained into a small digital card. This Pokemon-ification of the villains, trapping them in plastic rectangles, felt cleaner, more humane, and distinctly futuristic. It turned the battlefield into a crime scene processing unit. The sound of the containment card sealing, a sharp, vacuum-like zip, was the satisfying punctuation mark of a case closed, reinforcing the theme of law and order. Number 74 is the snout of the Shadow Ranger. Commander Anubis Doggy Kruger is one of the most distinctive mentors in the franchise. He was a 7-foot-tall blue dog man. The practical effects used to bring him to life were a mix of impressive and uncanny. His animatronic head had moving eyes and a snout that articulated when he spoke, though often just slightly out of sync with the audio. Despite the rubber suit, the character radiated authority. He wore a high-collared trench coat that gave him a noir detective silhouette. When he finally morphed into the Shadow Ranger, it was a moment of pure catharsis. The episode Shadow, where he single-handedly defeated 100 Crybots without taking a hit, is legendary. The swordplay was fast, the music was driving, and the image of the blue dog head replaced by the sleek armored helmet signaled that the boss had finally clocked in to show the rookies how it was done. Number 75 is the absenteeism of the Omega Ranger. The sixth Ranger of this season, the Omega Ranger, was a ball of light from the future. For production reasons, the character was almost always in his suit. The in-universe explanation was that his body was pure energy, so he couldn't demorph. In reality, this saved the production the cost of flying the actor to New Zealand for the entire shoot. This created a strange, ghostly presence. The Omega Ranger was a voice coming from a helmet, a suit acting alongside human faces. His design was sleek, white and gold with Roman numeral accents, and he moved with a wire-fu agility that defied gravity. However, his lack of a human face for most of the season made him feel more like a sentient weapon than a person. He was a temporal anomaly, a floating suit of armor that drifted into the frame to deliver firepower and then drifted back out, detached from the emotional grounding of the rest of the team. Number 76 is the sanctuary of the Root Core. Transitioning to Power Rangers Mystic Force, the steel and glass of the future were replaced by the gnarled wood and moss of the forest. The Rangers' base, Root Core, was a hollowed-out magical tree in a foggy dimension. The set design was impeccable, filled with bubbling cauldrons, dusty tomes, and dragon scales. It smelled of old paper and incense. The contrast to the previous season was absolute. Instead of computers, there was the Xenotome, a massive book that wrote itself. The lighting was warm, amber, and shadowy. This base felt safe, like a clubhouse built in the woods of our collective imagination. The sound of wind chimes and the rustling of leaves provided a constant, soothing background track. It was a place where technology failed and magic ruled, inviting the viewer to step away from the sci-fi noise and into the quiet, dusty comfort of a fairy tale. Number 77 is the flourish of the capes. Mystic Force introduced a controversial but visually striking element to the suits: capes. These weren't long, flowing superhero capes, but short, stiff half capes that extended from the shoulders. In motion, they added a spectacular flair to the fight choreography. Every spin kick, every jump was accentuated by the swirl of fabric. It gave the Rangers a silhouette that was distinct, part wizard, part musketeer. The way the capes snapped during sudden movements added a percussive visual to the action. It reinforced the theme that these weren't just soldiers, they were spellcasters. The suits themselves were detailed with gold threading and leather textures, feeling more like uniforms from a fantasy guild than spandex jumpsuits. The cape, often seen as a liability in hero fiction, here became a symbol of status, a flowing banner of magic that trailed behind every strike. Number 78 is the rhythm of the spell codes. To cast magic, the Mystic Force Rangers didn't just wave wands, they dialed numbers. Their morphers were flip phones, the height of 2006 technology, that functioned as wands. The magic system was based on codes, Galwit Misto Prifior. The actors would punch the keys on the phone in a rhythmic sequence, beep, bop, beep, before shouting the incantation. This blend of the archaic and the modern was the season's signature. It suggested that magic was a frequency, a code that could be accessed through technology. The sound of the keypad tones became the auditory trigger for the special effects. It turned the act of casting a spell into a tactical input, a frantic dialing in the heat of battle. It grounded the fantasy in a device that every child recognized, suggesting that maybe, if you punch the right numbers into your own phone, sparks might fly. Number 79 is the lineage of the Red Ranger. The narrative arc of Mystic Force was deeply personal. It wasn't about a random group of friends. It was about a lost family. Nick, the Red Ranger, was revealed to be the son of Udonna, the White Sorceress mentor, and Leanbow, the villainous Korag. This revelation turned the season into a family drama. The Chosen One trope was heavily influenced by the Harry Potter zeitgeist of the era. Nick wasn't just a leader, he was the light, a magical singularity. The scenes of him struggling with this identity, wrapping himself in a red blanket by the fire, were moody and introspective. The tragedy of fighting his own father, who was trapped inside the armor of the Nightwolf, gave the battles a heavy emotional weight. It was a story about heritage, about the sins of the father and the power of the mother, all wrapped in a red helmet. Number 80 is the steam of the Solar Streak. The Sixth Ranger, Daggeron, brought a steampunk aesthetic to the high fantasy. His Zord was not a dragon or a bird, it was a steam train. The Solar Streak was a beautiful black and gold locomotive that traveled on magical tracks in the sky. The imagery of a train chugging through the clouds, blowing a whistle that sounded like a choir, was dreamlike. When it transformed into the Megazord, the steam venting from its chest and the furnace glowing in its core gave it an industrial, mechanical heat. The interior of the cockpit looked like an old-fashioned conductor's cabin, complete with levers and coal chutes. It was a machine out of time, a nostalgic nod to the Iron Horse era, inserted into a world of wizards. The rhythmic chug-chug-chug of the Zord arriving was a comforting, heavy sound that promised help was arriving on the rails of destiny. Number 81 is the Atlas of the Overdrive. In 2007, Power Rangers Operation Overdrive broke the geographical containment of the franchise. For 15 years, the monsters had politely attacked one specific city in California or New Zealand. This season, however, was a global treasure hunt. The Rangers were explorers, traveling from London to St. Lucia, from Egypt to Japan. The scale of the show expanded horizontally. The base wasn't a bunker, it was a mansion filled with artifacts. The texture of the season was defined by maps, compasses, and ancient ruins. It tapped into the Indiana Jones spirit that was re-emerging in pop culture at the time. Watching the team jet set across the globe gave the series a breathless, kinetic pacing. The background scenery changed constantly. Snowy mountains, desert sands, tropical jungles. It suggested that the grid was not local, but planetary. The constant movement made the team feel like an expeditionary force, a group of adventurers racing against the sunset to find the jewels of the Corona Aurora before the villains could claim them. Number 82 is the existential crisis of Mac Hartford. In what is arguably the most profound plot twist in the show's history, the Red Ranger, Mac, discovered he was not human. He was an android. The scene where his head is literally knocked off his shoulders, sparking and whirring while his eyes continue to blink in confusion, is a moment of genuine body horror and philosophical weight. Power Rangers rarely dealt with the question of what makes a soul, but here it dove deep. Mac's subsequent depression, the feeling that his memories were just code, his feelings just programming, was surprisingly mature. He wasn't fighting a monster, he was fighting his own nature. The Pinocchio archetype played out in spandex. It added a layer of tragedy to his heroism. Every time he risked his life, he had to wonder if he even had a life to lose, or if he was simply a piece of hardware designed to be expendable by his own creator father. Number 83 is the utility of the Drive Max Zords. The mechs of Operation Overdrive were not animals or mythical beasts. They were heavy construction equipment. Dump trucks, cement mixers, cranes, and dozers. This gave the Zord battles a distinctly industrial, utilitarian aesthetic. The machines were bright orange, blue, and black, painted in hazard colors. They looked like they belonged on a job site rather than a battlefield. When they combined, the resulting Megazord looked like a walking skyscraper of civil engineering. The sound design emphasized the heavy hydraulics, the hiss-clank of pistons, and the grinding of gears. It was a celebration of blue-collar machinery. The shovel arm would dig into the enemy. The mixer arm would blast concrete. It grounded the high-stakes treasure hunt in the tactile reality of heavy lifting, suggesting that saving the world was, at its core, a construction project that required the right tools for the job. Number 84 is the War of the Factions. Usually, the villains were a united front, a single empire of evil. Overdrive introduced a chaotic free-for-all. There were 4 distinct villain factions: the Icy Furious, the Fiery Moltor, the Ninja Camdor, and the Alien Fearcats. They hated the Rangers, but they hated each other just as much. We often watched battles where the Rangers were merely third-party observers to a brawl between ice golems and lava lizards. This added a layer of political intrigue to the antagonists. They formed temporary alliances and betrayed one another with Shakespearean frequency. Moltor and Furious, brothers who despised each other, provided a dynamic of familial dysfunction that mirrored the Rangers' own team issues. The constant infighting made the world feel dangerous and unpredictable, a lawless race where anyone could attack anyone at any moment, turning the globe into a chessboard with 5 different players moving at once. Number 85 is the nostalgia of Once a Ranger. To celebrate the 15th anniversary, the show brought back veteran Rangers from previous seasons to replace the current team. Seeing Adam Park, the second Black Ranger, return was a moment of electric nostalgia for older fans. He didn't just show up, he brought his original morph sequence, the 1990s music, and his shattered, taped-together power axe. The contrast between the old guard, stoic, experienced, using broken gear, and the new high-tech Overdrive team was stark. It was a commentary on the franchise's own evolution. The veterans moved with a practiced efficiency that the rookies lacked. The visual of 5 different colored suits from 5 different eras standing together was a vibrant timeline of the show's history. It validated the memories of the longtime viewer, proving that the heroes of the past were still out there, fighting the good fight in the shadows. Number 86 is the gaze of the solar shaders. Power Rangers. Jungle Fury made a radical stylistic choice with its morphers. There were no wristwatches or cell phones. To transform, the Rangers simply put on a pair of sunglasses. These solar shaders were a sleek, unique departure from tradition. The act of sliding on shades is universally coded as cool, a gesture of confidence. It changed the transformation from a tech activation to a posture shift. The visual effect, the lenses flashing with energy, the world tinting into the color of the Ranger, was subtle and stylish. It fit the martial arts theme perfectly. It wasn't about gadgetry, it was about focus. By covering their eyes, the Rangers were signaling that they were entering a different state of mind. It gave the team a distinct, laid-back energy, turning the moment of battle initiation into something that felt as casual and fluid as stepping into a dojo. Number 87 is the ectoplasm of the Spirit Rangers. Jungle Fury possesses a unique claim to fame. It introduced 3 Rangers created entirely by the American production team, with no Japanese counterpart. The Spirit Rangers, Shark, Bat, and Elephant, were not people in suits, but avatars of energy. They were summoned into battle like ghosts. Their designs were distinct, often more monochromatic and master-like than the main team. Because they were originally spirits, they moved with a floaty, ethereal grace. They could be controlled by the Masters or summoned by the Rangers. This blurred the line between a Zord and a Ranger. They were semi-sentient weapons of pure aura. The visual of the Bat Ranger hanging from the ceiling or the Shark Ranger swimming through the air added a supernatural texture to the fights. They represented the mastery of the internal spirit made manifest, a projection of power that didn't require a physical body to fight. Number 88 is the Slouch of RJ. The mentor of Jungle Fury, Robert James, RJ, deconstructed the wise master trope entirely. He was a pizza chef who wore flip-flops and a loose purple shirt. He ran a pizza parlor called Jungle Karma Pizza and spoke in surfer dude riddles. He was the antithesis of the stern Zordon or the militaristic Doggy Kruger. RJ taught that power came from relaxation, from flowing like water. His fighting style, the wolf style, was loose and rhythmic, often looking like a dance. When he eventually morphed into the Wolf Ranger, his suit was the first to be purple, a color previously unused in the core palette. His wolf beam attack, launched from a knee strike, and his jagged Muay Thai-inspired movements made him instantly iconic. He represented a new kind of leadership, the mentor who is also your buddy, the master who teaches you to save the world between slices of pepperoni. Number 89 is the possession of Jared. The villain arc of Jungle Fury was an intimate psychological struggle. The antagonist was not a monster, but a human martial artist named Jared, who was possessed by the ancient spirit Dai Shi. The actor played this duality with a frightening physicality. His movements were stiff, his neck twitching as if something was writhing under his skin. He wore a black lion armor that looked heavy and oppressive. The horror came from knowing that the human Jared was still inside, screaming silently. The relationship between him and the female villain, Camille, was genuinely touching. It was a dark romance, a loyalty forged in villainy. The final redemption, where Jared sheds the armor and reclaims his body, was earned through sweat and pain. It wasn't a laser blast that saved the day. It was the strength of the human will breaking the chains of a demonic parasite. Number 90 is the aerodynamics of the suits. If you look closely at the Jungle Fury costumes, you will notice a missing detail. They have no belts. Every previous Ranger team had a thick belt separating the torso from the legs. The Jungle Fury suits were designed to look like martial arts tracksuits or wrestling singlets. They were one continuous line of color, sleek and aerodynamic. The boots were soft-soled, like tabby shoes, rather than heavy combat boots. This design choice completely changed the silhouette of the heroes. They looked lighter, faster. The animal motifs were printed directly onto the spandex, rather than attached as armor. This emphasized the theme of the season: animal spirits. The Rangers weren't wearing armor, they were wearing a second skin. It allowed for more fluid choreography, highlighting the wire work and the intricate kung fu forms that defined the action sequences of the season. Number 91 is the Dome of Corinth. If Power Rangers RPM felt different, it's because it was designed as a eulogy. The premise was stark. An AI virus named Vengix had already won. Humanity was hunted to near extinction, and the survivors huddled inside the domed city of Corinth. The visual language was post-apocalyptic. We saw yellow filters, dusty badlands, and industrial decay. The city itself was a character, a claustrophobic maze of steel and desperation, bathed in artificial light. The outside world was a toxic desert, patrolled by grinders, robotic drones that moved with a twitchy, zombie-like menace. This wasn't a show about saving the world. It was a show about surviving the end of it. The constant hum of the dome's air filters and the dim, flickering lights of the garage base created an atmosphere of oppressive tension. It remains the darkest setting in the franchise, a reminder that even in a show about colorful heroes, the shadow of total annihilation can loom heavy over the skyline. Number 92 is the burden of Dr. K. The mentor of the RPM team was not an ancient wizard or a wise alien. It was a teenage girl in a hospital gown, typing frantically on a keyboard. Dr. K was a child prodigy, raised in a government tank, who created the Vengix virus in a desperate attempt to escape her captors. She didn't just fight the villain, she created him. This guilt was the engine of the entire series. She spoke in a clipped, monotone voice, hiding her trauma behind a wall of technical jargon and social awkwardness. She refused to use the Rangers' real names, referring to them only by their colors. Ranger Operator Series Red. This dehumanization was her defense mechanism. Watching her slowly learn to trust, to play the violin, and to accept friendship was a heartbreakingly human arc. She remains the most tragic figure in the archive, a genius who broke the world and spent every waking second trying to fix it. Number 93 is the Eyes of the Zords. RPM faced a unique production challenge. The Japanese source material, Engine Sentai Go Onga, was a slapstick comedy featuring talking cars with giant anime-style eyes. The American writers, committed to a gritty Mad Max tone, had to explain why their tanks and race cars had cute faces. In a moment of brilliant meta-commentary, Dr. K explains that the eyes are actually sophisticated optical sensors designed to mimic human connection, unnerving the pilots. The show leaned into the absurdity rather than hiding it, Seeing a giant cartoony police car Zord combine with a yellow bear RV in the middle of a desolate wasteland created a jarring, surreal aesthetic. It was a clash of textures, the grime of the apocalypse meeting the glossy, toy-like cheerfulness of the Zords. It serves as a testament to the power of writing, proving that you can take the silliest footage imaginable and recontextualize it into something strangely serious. Number 94 is the amnesia of Subject D44. The Black Ranger, Dylan, was the archetype of the lone wolf perfected. He drove a black muscle car, wore a leather jacket, and had no memory of who he was. But the horror of his character lay in his biology. He was a cyborg. The villains had experimented on him, implanting mechanical hardware into his body. A ticking clock was embedded in the narrative. The virus inside him was slowly taking over. If he didn't defeat Venjix in time, he would become a machine. The sound of the gears turning in his arm and the digital HUD that would glitch over his vision were constant reminders of his lost humanity. His relationship with the playful, optimistic Green Ranger, Ziggy, provided the emotional anchor of the season. Dylan was the Frankenstein's monster of the team, a man fighting to remain a man in a world that wanted to turn him into a weapon. Number 95 is the danger of the morph. In most seasons, the morphing sequence is a flashy, safe space where the hero poses while colors swirl. In RPM, the morph was an explosion of energy that disrupted the environment. When the Rangers transformed, the blast would blow papers off desks and knock over bystanders. It felt volatile. The Getting Gear sequence involved the Rangers physically manipulating a throttle on their morphers, revving them like engines. The sound design was aggressive, the screech of tires, the roar of a V8 engine, the slamming of metal. It implied that the suit wasn't magic, it was high-performance hardware. The suits themselves featured tires on the helmets and seatbelt straps on the chests, reinforcing the vehicular theme. Morphing felt like strapping into a drag racer, a dangerous, adrenaline-fueled transition that signaled the violence to come. Number 96 is the finale of the Disney era. RPM was the final season produced by Disney, and the creative team knew it. They treated the finale, Danger and Destiny, as the end of the entire franchise. The stakes were absolute. The Zords were destroyed. The dome was breached. The Rangers were pushed to the brink of death. When the dust settled, the team didn't stay together. They handed in their morphers and went their separate ways. Dylan and Summer drove off into the wasteland. Dr. K opened a school. Ziggy and the Doctor opened a school. It was a bittersweet, definitive conclusion. The final shot, a rusty Morpher buried in the sand with a single red light blinking, was a haunting image. It suggested that while the battle was over, the virus was still out there, dormant. It was a mic drop, a somber goodbye to a decade of storytelling that left the archive quiet, if only for a moment. Number 97 is the return of the Saban fanfare. After a brief hiatus, the franchise was purchased back by Haim Saban. The premiere of Power Rangers Samurai in 2011 marked a return to tradition. The first thing fans noticed was the theme song. The iconic Go Go Power Rangers refrain, absent for years, was back, remixed and louder than ever. The visual quality jumped to high definition. The aspect ratio widened. The colors popped with a saturation that looked like a comic book. But with this gloss came a return to the lighter, more formulaic tone of the early 90s. The Saban era had returned. For many older fans, it was a moment of whiplash, moving from the gritty, character-driven drama of RPM back to the puns and monster of the week structure of Samurai. It was a restoration of the original factory settings, a signal that the experiment was over and the brand was back to basics. Number 98 is the physics of the spin sword. Samurai introduced a weapon mechanic that was mesmerizing to watch: the spin sword. To activate their elemental powers, the Rangers had to spin a black disc on the hilt of their katana. The physics of this were purely toyetic, but on screen, it looked fantastic. The reflection of the sun on the spinning disc, the whir sound it made as it gathered speed, and the eventual elemental strike, fire, water, wood, earth, sky, created a rhythmic combat style. The Rangers would stand in formation, spin their discs in unison, and unleash a wave of CGI effects. It was a marriage of Japanese Bushido aesthetics and American toy marketing. The kanji, writing in the air, using the sword to paint the symbol for their element, added a calligraphy aspect to the violence, turning every finishing move into a stroke of artistic destruction. Number 99 is the concept of the morphing grid. Throughout the history of the archive, one term has bound every disparate season together: the morphing grid. It is the unseen river of energy that flows through the universe, the source from which all Rangers draw their power. Whether it's dinosaurs, ninjas, wizards, or cars, they all tap into this same frequency. It is the theological backbone of the franchise. It implies that the power is not owned by anyone, it is borrowed. The grid chooses the hero, and the grid protects them. It explains why a team of teenagers can survive an explosion that levels a building. They are avatars of this cosmic force. The static you hear between the channels, the sparks that fly from the suits, the glow of the teleportation, that is the grid. It is the constant, humming presence that ensures that no matter the era, no matter the threat, the color remains. Number 100 is the eternal promise of the helmet. We end our journey with the object that defines the legacy: the helmet. For over 30 years, the helmet has been the great equalizer. When the visor comes down, the teenager disappears, and the symbol remains. It doesn't matter who is under the mask, their race, their gender, their history. The Ranger is an idea. It is the idea that anyone can be a hero. It is the promise that when the monster grows giant and the sky turns dark, 5 colors will stand against the horizon. The smell of the rubber suit, the crackle of the radio, the weight of the plastic blaster in your hand. These are the sensory memories of a global childhood. The Nostalgia Archive is built on this feeling, the safety of the Saturday morning ritual. The static clears, the guitar riff plays, and for 20 minutes, the good guys always win. And that, my friends, is a fact worth holding on to. This concludes our session at the Sleep Archive. The tapes are rewound, the lights are dimming. Sleep well, and may the power protect you.